Hello and welcome back to the lesson. Today we are going to study the linkage of public administration and public policy. Public administration and public policy. And candidates, these two are intertwined. These are intertwined fields or interconnected fields that work together to address societal issues. These two work together to improve the lives of people, the lives of citizens. Public administration and public policy are intertwined, they are interconnected. And in this lesson, we're going to discuss how the two are interlinked or interconnected, the linkage of public administration and public policy. Now, public policy involves identifying problems in the society. It involves setting goals and developing strategies to address the problems. Okay? And what I've just said is what is referred to as policy formulation. All right? Public policy formulation involves identifying problems within the society, setting goals, and then developing strategies to address the problems. Public policy also involves decision making, which is the process of choosing the best course of action among various policy options. It may also involve implementation, and at the implementation stage, the focus is on putting the chosen policy into practice and ensuring it reaches the target population. Then we have another stage in public policy known as evaluation, which assesses the effectiveness of the implemented policy. All right? So those are 4 stages in public policy. Public policy. And this we've already covered in our previous sessions, candidates. We saw that public policy involves policy formulation. Then after formulation, there is the decision making. Then there is the implementation, and finally evaluation. I've said public policy formulation involves identifying problems, setting goals, developing strategies to address the problem. Then a decision has to be made, and that decision that is made involves choosing the best course of action from various policy options. One problem may have various ways in which it can be solved. If it is a problem relating to health or any other problem in the society, there could be very many options to solve that problem. But a decision has to be made in relation to choosing the best course of action among the various policy options. Then after the decision is made, that decision has to be implemented. The chosen policy has to be put into practice to ensure that it reaches the target population. Then when implementing, evaluation has to be done. This means assessing the effectiveness of the implemented policy decision, so that if there is any deviation from the plan, then the adjustments can be made. Adjustments are then needed to make sure that what was planned is being implemented. So that is public policy. Then there is public administration. Public administration. Now, candidates, I'm setting the stage for us to understand the leakage. But first of all, you need to understand the process for both. Then we look at the interconnectedness between public policy and public administration. Now, public administration, candidates, has a lot to do with implementation. 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 Public administrators play a crucial role in carrying out policy decisions made by the policymakers. The decisions are made by the policymakers, but the decisions are implemented by public administrators. They manage resources, they manage personnel, and they also manage programs to ensure the smooth implementation of policies. So policies are put in place, are developed by policymakers, but these policies are implemented by public administrators. You understand? Implementation of policy is done by public administrators. Then there is service delivery. Service delivery. Service delivery. Public administrators are responsible for delivering services that are essential to the public, such as healthcare, education, infrastructure, social care programs, and so on. Service delivery. 3, regulation. 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 Public administrators enforce regulations, they enforce standards, and they also protect public health, they protect safety, and they also protect the environment. Regulation. And lastly, we have feedback. Public administrators gather feedback from the public. They gather feedback from the stakeholders. And this feedback is on the effectiveness of policies and programs, which helps in evaluation and improvement. Evaluation may be done by the public policymakers, but the feedback is provided by the public administrators, because it is the public administrators who oversee the implementation of public policy. So they are in a better position to get feedback from the stakeholders. They get feedback from the public, from the stakeholders on the effectiveness of policies and programs, which helps in evaluation and improvement process. So now you see the connection. You see the process and connection. We can still discuss more on the interconnectedness, or linkage. First of all, candidates, public administration, we can define it as the practical arm of public policy. And we alluded to here when we mentioned implementation. Policy is developed by the policymakers, but implemented by public administrators. And therefore, public policy is the practical arm of public policy. Policies are formulated through political processes, and public administrators translate those policies into action. You understand? I've said that public administration is the practical arm of public policy. That is to say that for public administrators to do their work, they rely on public policy. There cannot be public administration without public policy, and public policy without public administration may not be useful. That's very important for you to note. That's the first aspect of linkage. The second aspect of linkage of public administration and public policy is that public administrators provide feedback. Public administrators provide feedback. Public administrators provide feedback to the policymakers. Two, we say that policy making is a political process. All right? Public administrators provide feedback to policymakers on feasibility, on effectiveness of policies, which can inform future policy decisions. The third aspect is that the success of public policy depends on the efficient and effective implementation of public administrators. The success. The success of public policy depends on the efficiency and effectiveness of public administrators. Public policymakers only formulate policy. They decide which option is the best. But the implementation of it, the success of such a policy, depends on the efficiency and effectiveness of public administrators. You understand? The third or fourth aspect is that public administration provides the infrastructure and resources. Public administration provides the infrastructure and resources that are necessary for the successful delivery of public services. That is the linkage, and I'm going to give you some examples. One example could be cited from healthcare services. Healthcare. Take healthcare as an example. Now, under this example, policymakers may decide to expand access to, say, affordable healthcare. That is a decision that may be reached by the policymakers. To do what? To expand access to affordable healthcare. And public administrators design and implement programs to achieve such a goal, such as setting up clinics, enrolling people in insurance plans, and also managing healthcare resources. So it's the role of the policymakers to develop the plan, because a policy is a plan. Planning to expand healthcare services. That is one thing to do. But that requires practicality. That's why we said that public administration is the practical arm. Is a practical arm. To the practical arm of public policy. The arm. The work of an arm is to provide services, to work out, to implement. All right? That's an example. Another example could be cited in, say, education. Education. Policymakers may decide to improve the quality of education, and public administrators will then develop curriculum standards. Public administrators will train the teachers. Public administrators will allocate resources to schools. They also may monitor student performance. So you see the linkage. One depends on the other. It's one thing to have a plan, but it's yet another thing to implement it. Public administrators cannot work without public policy. Neither can public policy be effective without public administration. So the two are interconnected. The two are interconnected. Then another example is environmental, say environmental policy. As an example, environmental policy. Environmental policy. Now, policymakers may set goals to reduce pollution. They may set goals to protect natural resources. That is policy. Now, public administrators will then enforce regulations on industries. Public administrators will also develop conservation programs. Public administration can also educate the public on environmental issues. So developing the policy is the role of the public policy makers, but implementation is done by public administrators. So you can see, candidates, public administration and public policy are closely intertwined. They work together in a cycle of policy formulation, implementation, evaluation, and also feedback to achieve the common goal of improving the well-being of the citizens of a country. So that is all we can say in relation to linkage of public administration and public policy. Here is your today assignment. Assignment 1. How does public administration influence the implementation and effectiveness of public policies? 2. What are the ethical considerations for public administrators when translating policies into action? 3. In what ways can public administrators contribute to the formulation of effective public policies? 4. How can the relationship between public administration and public policy be strengthened to better serve the public interest? Thank you. In our next lesson, we are going to discuss linkage between national and county development plans. Bye.